Good afternoon and welcome to Jazz Club. Not really. This is the next guitar that I made. Well, actually, that's a lie, but as a lie, it's not all that much of a lie. So after the relative success of the S-type guitar, I only made a couple of real manufacturing mistakes, but I knew how to correct them. So if you'll recall, I didn't make the neck pocket deep enough, and I didn't leave enough material around the control plate screw holes to support the control plate properly. But I knew I could fix those things, and I didn't feel like I needed to proceed necessarily one guitar at a time anymore. Now, I did pause to think about whether I wanted to do the original plan of perhaps make no more guitars and just have a fleet of preloaded Strat type pick guards that I could swap in and out of that guitar. I decided not to do that because you can't easily change a pick guard with these strings on there and up to tuning. You have to release the tension off all the strings to get enough wiggle room to take the pick guard off, and then it's a little bit risky on whether you're going to scratch the body or something as you put the pick guard on, and it's relatively just annoying. It's not like if it were a 2-minute job, I'd have probably done it, but it's more like 20 minutes per time, and then you've got to tune and retune, and you risk breaking strings, so I did try it out, but I decided not to go that way. So at that point it was like, well, okay, you're going to make at least one more guitar, and maybe you're going to end up having one of each of the main types, so a 2 humbucker guitar, a humbucker single arrangement, maybe something with P90s, maybe as this is a Jazzmaster style guitar, in terms of pickups and wiring. But this one represents kind of my last. I think at the time I was designing and building this, I knew that I wasn't going to go for one guitar to rule them all and to play all the different tones on. But this was kind of, even though I don't think that it's going to work, this is the most capable of playing different tones guitar that I own. And the reason for that is it has this extra pickup, which is a Roland GK3 kit built into the guitar. And that means I can connect this output port to a Roland synthesizer and play anything that synthesizer knows how to make noise-wise from this guitar, controlled with my fingers and the fretboard as it is with any guitar. So I'm actually not going to demo that system because it can sound like anything, any MIDI, anything you can trigger with MIDI can be done from this guitar. So demoing what that part of this system sounds like is almost meaningless. If you can imagine a noise, I can trigger it from here essentially. So doesn't seem too, as a sound demo, it's a waste of time. However, the inclusion of that pickup meant I have to add this control knob, this control switch, and this control switch, and this LED and this output jack, and then 3 circuit boards inside here. And then this isn't actually properly wired like a Jazzmaster, so I chose to have it that on the darker voice Jazzmaster tone circuit, the pickup selector switch still works, so I can have bridge pickup through that circuit or neck pickup through that circuit, or both. Whereas obviously in a normal Jazzmaster you only route the neck pickup signal through there. Also, in a fit of throwing the kitchen sink at it, I guess, this is wired with the sort of 4-way Telecaster mod. So I've got from here it's bridge, middle in parallel, so both in parallel, neck, and then finally both in series, which is a bit of a hotter output. It gives me a far wider variety of sounds than any of my other guitars when it's just passive. And then if I plug it in, as I say, to one of the synthesizer, compatible synthesizers I've got, I can make it do any of those noises those synths will do, and then also those convert the signal to MIDI, and I can then flow that into any software instrument, anything that can make a noise because of a MIDI command, I can make it do it from my guitar. Extremely versatile to play. As you can see, it's got an actual Fender Telecaster neck on it. This is a Mexican neck. That's, mechanically and tonally what this guitar is. So obviously it's still my signature body shape, pretty much the same layout as the one I showed you most recently, which was the S-type, although it's slightly different in this area because I would have liked to make it basically the same shape and have the two output jacks be on this side, but that would have meant making a bent pick guard, which I thought that was a bit too much technical innovation for me to attempt at the time I was doing it. I mean, I seriously considered it. I had the aluminium sheet that I would need in stock to do it. I just didn't have the press brake tooling or the experience to be confident that I could do that, and so I chose to machine this piece of wood to allow for a flat pick guard. I do have the design still for what the curved one would have to look like, but this is not that. Spoke last time about where I'd used a bridge design for a Strat on my S-type. I've kind of tried to respect the Jazzmaster vibe, where the strings go over the bridge and then stop in a tailpiece somewhere behind the bridge. Obviously I've got a lot less space to play with here than on a real Jazzmaster, so this is a very basic tailpiece and then a Tune-o-matic style bridge. I don't know if it will come out on the camera on what you can see, but this area is really packed in. It goes pickup, Jazzmaster bridge pickup, Roland pickup, and then the Tune-o-matic bridge, and then the tailpiece is only like 2 centimeters or less than 2 centimeters behind that. It's really hard to adjust any of these parts. Typically I'll have to move something else out of the way. So to adjust the intonation, I have to push down the Jazzmaster bridge pickup and remove or push down the Roland pickup just to access the intonation screws. So as you can imagine, I do not change the string gauge on this guitar with any level of frequency. I mean, I pretty much put 9s on everything anyway. Right now these are DR Strings Black Beauties, which I quite like the sound of, and it gives this guitar a bit of a interesting look. I mean, it's already orange and the most complicated thing I've ever built, so why not put black strings on it? I'm relatively pleased with how subtle the Roland pickup is. I think on this, if I wanted a white pick guard or something, it would have looked more obtrusive, but because I went for this tortoise shell, or if I'd gone for black, it would have similarly kind of disappeared into the background. So you don't really notice it's there as a observer of it. I've also wired it what I consider properly and not according to Roland's instructions. So when I plug in a jack into the normal guitar output lead, it floats the guitar connections to the 13 pin so that the signal doesn't get the signal my amps and whatever see is not affected by that Roland circuitry, even when because as soon as I plug it in, that stuff's disconnected and doesn't see the guitar signal at all. It still works. I can plug in both at once, so I can send my normal Jazzmaster signal through an amp chain, and then I can send the synth signal through my synths and have pads backing me up, or do all kinds of stuff. one of the fun things to do with it is to set up a synth to be a synth Les Paul, let's say, and then set them both to be neck pickup and comparable volume levels, but have the synth be in a different tuning than the real guitar, so that you can play and it will harmonize, but it will sound like two different guitarists playing in harmony with each other at the same time. You can obviously pan the signal to different places really easily. It's, you know, like a offset tuning chorus pedal can do, but a bit better than that, because the tonality is different, as well as, you know, the timbre of the sound being one being a synthetic Les Paul and one being a real-ish Jazzmaster tone gets, you know, you get that feeling of two or more guitarists who are really in sync with each other, playing in harmony. Kind of like, you know, a ghetto version of listening to Iron Maiden, where they've got three guitarists who are so good, playing in time and in tune with each other. But you know, I can get that to a very small extent at home with just me here. So this switch here I never touch, and I kind of regret bothering to wire it in. I should have just wired it up as though it was always in this position, because I never touched that. But what that does is, if you're only using the 13-pin connector, you can turn off the Roland pickup, or you can completely turn off the guitar pickup. In practice, like, the reason I never use that is, if I want just the synth sound, I'll set up the preset that that's decoding the thing to only use the synth sound, and so I don't need to say don't send the guitar signal, because no one's receiving it anyway, and vice versa. I prefer to manage that split by presets on the pedal that's receiving the signal, not from the instrument mid-performance. This switch, you get two things you can press on the guitar that you can have do something on the pedal that's receiving it. So I generally have that be next and previous preset. That's what this switch does on all of my systems. And the standard, like, if you load one of the factory presets, then this knob on the guitar will almost always affect the synthesizer volume. I don't care for that. Like, tweaking the volume isn't something I care about, because I'm just going to record into a DAW, and then I'll tweak the levels afterwards if I need to mix it better. If I were live, I'd still you know, if I were a big player live, then I'd have a audio tech tweak the levels on the mixer, and like, that's still true down to pretty small venues already nowadays. So what I like this for is as a tone knob. So if I'm playing, if I've set up a preset that's going to be a guitar, this will be my tone knob, so I can, you know, make it darker or brighter. And if it's like, say it was a classic Moog style bass synth that I was trying to control, it would be mapped to the filter sweep, you know, one of the filter knobs, the one that, again, gives me some tone shaping control. I don't need volume shaping, I want tone shaping. In terms of the practicalities of making this, it was CNC machined and then post-processed by hand, in the same way that the my S-type style one was done. So I won't recap that. I did fix the problems. Obviously the neck pocket on this is deeper, and the wood to support this pick guard is a lot more robust, so it doesn't have that same drum-like effect on the front. The handle is more refined. That wasn't done by tweaking the 3D model, it was just done by improving my sanding process. And this guitar is made from roasted alder, which means it's much lighter than a normal alder body, and then most of the space behind this pick guard is a air-filled void, so it's not a heavy instrument in the first place. The balance I don't have a strap on it because, again, it will make a squeaking noise on the microphone, which is annoying. But as it's the same shape and approximate weight balance as the S-Type, it has basically the same characteristics. Although this one does neck dive to a slightly lesser amount, even though it has heavier tuners on it, because it doesn't have that large magnet, and of course the Tele headstock is itself a lighter weight system. Finally, I do want to let me see if I can get my lav mic to pick this up. So if I rub my finger on the top of the back of the body, you can hear what that sounds like. Now if I rub it down below where the control cavity is, you'll hear, hopefully that will get picked up, a sort of papery, raspy noise. That is because in that section of the body it's maybe a millimetre thick bit of wood and roasted alder. You can really feel it moving under your fingers, and it doesn't just sound hollow, it sounds like like it's a piece of paper rustling as you touch it. As I said, I really wanted my guitars to be light, and this one is the one where I went the most aggressive on removing material, because I knew I had to fit so much electronical gubbins in there that it would need to be very thin. Although this can make pretty much any sound I can conceive through the synthesis thing, I do find, because I think of it as a jazz guitar, I find that how I play when I'm using this is very different to how I play any of my other guitars, and it has, well, it was initially anyway. I think I've been able to take this attitude into the rest of my guitar playing. I'm kind of embarrassed to say this, but my concept of jazz comes more from, like, primarily, let's say, The Fast Show and then The Simpsons, rather than like the real world of actual jazz music. And since those shows are more about sending up the extremes of the jazz fandom than they are about the actual jazz music, it gives you a very, like, I know that the view I have of it is very distorted and not at all what jazz music is like. But having confessed to all that, what I do with this, what I do with that mentality, so from like the Fast Show and also the Mighty Boosh, where they're taking the mickey out of jazz fans by playing some deliberately discordant stuff and then turning to the camera and saying nice or whatever. What I kind of have established as a rule for myself in this faux jazz mentality is, if I play a bad note or I play something out of time for when I meant to do it, I'm not allowed to think of that as a mistake. What I challenge myself to do is then find some other a sequence of notes to play that means I can then make that exact same mistake again and have it sound coherent. And so you've actually heard the results of that process if you've listened to any of my engineering podcasts, because the intro riff for that, what I was trying to play was, now that's that little, was it 5 notes? That 5-note sequence is like pleasant enough, but it's a bit boring. And I kept fluffing it and playing this. So initially I was just going, and then immediately correcting myself by sliding my finger to there. And I didn't like that sound of, but I could feel like it felt to me that if I put some more development effort into it, I could probably come up with a sequence of notes where that error and correction did make some kind of sense. And so we end up with, eventually, after quite a lot of messing around in that session, with the riff you're possibly familiar with, which and then the riff for my hobby Quadcast, which is this one, is just those exact same notes, but in a different order to get back up to the top. Because I felt that that first riff, like, it resolves, but it doesn't completely resolve. It feels like there's still some tension there to me. So we ended up with the full cycle, and I'm going to play it now. Right, I'm not going to touch the pickup. I'm just going to change to the other tone circuit, and you'll hear the difference in tone. And I might actually, what I'm going to do is I'll play half of it. I'll switch between the tone circuits to try and accentuate the difference between the phrases, and to give you an idea of like what the versatility of the Jazzmaster system is. Just let me check my levels. So hopefully you noticed the tonal difference from one tone circuit to the other there. You can do some quite cool things with the Jazzmaster type tone circuit as an option. So if I play an E chord, toggling between the circuits while holding the chord gives you a kind of interesting sort of tremolo effect. So you're not, if you tune it right, you're not really changing the level of the signal, and you're not changing the phase of the signal, which is quite important, but you are flipping from one tone control circuit to the other, which is changing the timbre of the signal. And so that, that's quite a cool effect. You can't do that on any other guitar. The closest you can come on another guitar is probably the pickup selector. But that is going to affect the phase of the notes, which is going to give you, not saying that that's an unpleasant effect, but it will be more than just a timbre change on the note you're playing. So, if it sounds good to you, do it. But I just wanted to give you a view into the reasons why I wanted to have this extra complexity and these pickups. The other reason for it is that the synth I have that can take this 13-pin signal and produce different guitar tones from it has the capability to do almost every kind of guitar tone that I could think of, but it doesn't have a model for a Jazzmaster pickup set in it. So by adding Jazzmaster pickups to the guitar that was going to have the Roland system in it, I got everything in one box. And so like 98% of everything was in the synthesizer end of things, and then I've also got the Jazzmaster option, which I wouldn't otherwise have had. I thought about giving it a name. I think of it as the Jazz Monster because obviously you can't call it a Jazz Master, that's a Fender trademark, but it's still related to a Jazz Master, but it's got this extra capability because of the Roland system. So this is Phil's Orange Jazz Monster in the parlance. The other guitars I tend to just think of in terms of like it's my signature body shape, and then it has the pickup configuration, so triple S or two humbuckers or T-type. The reason this one gets its own name rather than being thought of as that is that these two are obviously J-type pickups for Jazzmaster, and then this is a Roland V guitar pickup, so it would be a V pickup. And I did not want to, for obvious reasons, think about this as being a VJJ guitar. I'm going to slap it into the bridge pickup because we've just been listening to the neck so far, and then I'll play a little bit on the I'll play a bit on the normal guitars tone circuit, and then I'll play a bit on the Jazzmaster tone circuit. So I really like that tone on the bridge pickup, the Jazzmaster's unique tone circuit, and you can't have that on a normally wired real Jazzmaster. So I'm pleased I did that. It's not a mod because this is the only way this guitar's ever been wired, but it's that modification to Fender's original design. I think they could consider bringing out a Jazzmaster where you can actually get at that tone without having to change it yourself. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next episode. Goodbye.